The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Chapter 32. In the deepest reaches of night, when even the wild dogs drowse and the owls are quiet, an old man comes to our tent. He is filthy, his clothing torn, his hair smeared with ashes and dirt. His robes are wet from swimming the river, yet his eyes, when he speaks, are clear. "I have come for my son," he says. The king of Troy moves across the room to kneel at Achilles' feet. He bows his white head. "Will you hear a father's prayer, mighty prince of Phthia, best of the Greeks?" Achilles stares down at the man's shoulders, as if in a trance. They are trembling with age, stooped with the burdens of grief. This man bore 50 sons, and has lost all but a handful. "I will hear you," he says. "The blessings of the gods upon your kindness," Priam says. His hands are cool on Achilles' burning skin. "I have come far this night in hope." A shudder, involuntary, passes through him, the night's chill and the wet clothes. "I am sorry to appear so meanly before you." The words seem to wake Achilles a little. "Do not kneel," he says. "Let me bring you food and drink." He offers his hand and helps the old king to his feet. He gives him a dry cloak and the soft cushions that Phoenix likes best, and pours wine. Beside Priam's furrowed skin and slow steps, he seems suddenly very young. "Thank you for your hospitality," Priam says. His accent is strong, and he speaks slowly, but his Greek is good. "I have heard that you are a noble man, and it is on your nobility that I throw myself. We are enemies, yet you have never been known as cruel. I beg you to return my son's body for burial, so his soul does not wander lost." As he speaks, he is careful not to let himself look at the shadow, face down in the corner. Achilles is staring into the cupped darkness of his hands. "You show courage to come here alone," he says. "How did you get into the camp?" "I was guided by the grace of the gods." Achilles looks up at him. "How did you know I would not kill you?" "I did not know," says Priam. There is silence. The food and wine sit before them, but neither eats nor drinks. I can see Achilles' ribs through his tunic. Priam's eyes find the other body, mine, lying on the bed. He hesitates a moment. "That is, your friend?" "Philtatos," Achilles says sharply, "most beloved. Best of men, and slaughtered by your son." "I'm sorry for your loss," Priam says, "and sorry that it was my son who took him from you. Yet, I beg you to have mercy. In grief, men must help each other, though they are enemies." "What if I will not?" His words have gone stiff. "Then you will not." There is silence a moment. "I could kill you still," Achilles says. "Achilles." "I know." The king's voice is quiet, unafraid. "But it is worth my life. If there's a chance my son's soul may be at rest." Achilles' eyes fill. He looks away so the old man will not see. Priam's voice is gentle. "It is right to seek peace for the dead. You and I both know there is no peace for those who live after." "No," Achilles whispers. Nothing moves in the tent. Time does not seem to pass. Then Achilles stands. "It is close to dawn, and I do not want you to be in danger as you travel home. I will have my servants prepare your son's body." When they are gone, he slumps next to me, his face against my belly. My skin grows slippery under the steady fall of his tears. The next day he carries me to the pyre. Briseis and the Myrmidons watch as he places me on the wood and strikes the flint. The flames surround me, and I feel myself slipping further from life, thinning to only the faintest shiver in the air. I yearn for the darkness and silence of the underworld, where I can rest. He collects my ashes himself, though this is a woman's duty. He puts them in a golden urn, the finest in our camp, and turns to the watching Greeks. When I am dead, I charge you to mingle our ashes and bury us together. Hector and Sarpedon are dead, but other heroes come and take their place. Anatolia is rich with allies and those making common cause against invaders. First is Memnon, the son of rosy-fingered Dawn, king of Ethiopia, a large man, dark and crowned, striding forward with an army of soldiers as dark as he, a burnished black. He stands, grinning expectantly. He has come for one man, and one man alone. That man comes to meet him, armed with only a spear. His breastplate is carelessly buckled. His once bright hair hangs lank and unwashed. Memnon laughs. This'll be easy. When he crumbles, folded around a long ashen shaft, the smile is taken from his face. Wearily, Achilles retrieves his spear. Next come the horsewomen, breasts exposed, their skin glistening like oiled wood. Their hair is bound back, their arms full of spears and bristling arrows. Curved shields hang from their saddles, crescent-shaped, as if coined from the moon. At their front is a single figure on a chestnut horse, hair loose, Anatolian eyes dark and curving and fierce, chips of stone that move restlessly over the army before her. Penthesilea. She wears a cape, and it is this that undoes her, that allows her to be pulled, limbs light and poised as a cat, from her horse. She tumbles with easy grace, and one of her hands flashes for the spear tied to her saddle. She crouches in the dirt, bracing it. A face looms over her, grim, darkened, dulled. It wears no armor at all anymore, exposing all its skin to points and punctures. It is turned now, in hope and wistfulness, towards her. She stabs, and Achilles' body dodges the deadly point, impossibly lithe, endlessly agile. Always, its muscles betray it. Seeking life instead of the peace that spears bring, she thrusts again, and he leaps over the point, drawn up like a frog, body light and loose. He makes a sound of grief. He had hoped, because she has killed so many. Because from her horse she seemed so like him, so quick and graceful, so relentless. But she is not. A single thrust crushes her to the ground, leaves her chest torn open like a field beneath the plow. Her women scream in anger and grief at his retreating, bowed shoulders. Last of all is a young boy, Troilus. They have kept him behind the wall as their security, the youngest son of Priam, the one they want to survive. It is his brother's death that has pulled him from the walls. He is brave and foolish and will not listen. I see him wrenching from the restraining hands of his older brothers, and leaping into the chariot. He flies headlong, like a loosed greyhound seeking vengeance. The spear butt catches against his chest, just starting to widen with manhood. He falls, still holding the reins, and the frightened horses bolt, dragging him behind. His trailing spear tip clicks against the stones, riding in the dust with its bronze fingernail. At last he frees himself and stands, his legs, his back scraped and crusted. He faces the older man who looms in front of him, the shadow that haunts the battlefield, the grisly face that wearily kills man after man. I see that he does not stand a chance, his bright eyes, his bravely lifted chin. The point catches the soft bulb of his throat, and liquid spills like ink. Its color bled away by the dusk around me. The boy falls. Within the walls of Troy, a bow is strung quickly by rushing hands. An arrow is selected, and princely feet hurry upstairs to a tower that tilts over a battlefield of dead and dying, where God is waiting. It is easy for Paris to find his target. The man moves slowly like a lion grown wounded and sick, but his gold hair is unmistakable. Paris knocks his arrow. Where do I aim? I heard he was invulnerable except for— He is a man, Apollo says, not a god. Shoot him, and he will die. Paris aims. The god touches his finger to the arrow's fletching. Then he breathes, a puff of air, as if to send dandelions flying, to push toy boats over water. And the arrow flies, straight and silent, in a curving downward arc towards Achilles' back. Achilles hears the faint hum of its passage, a second before it strikes. He turns his head a little, as if to watch it come. He closes his eyes and feels its point push through his skin, parting thick muscle, worming its way past the interlacing fingers of his ribs. There, at last, is his heart. Blood spills between his shoulder blades, dark and slick as oil. Achilles smiles as his face strikes the earth. Chapter 33. The sea nymphs come for the body, trailing their sea-foam robes behind them. They wash him with rose oil and nectar, and weave flowers through his golden hair. The Myrmidons build him a pyre, and he is placed on it. The nymphs weep as the flames consume him, his beautiful body lost to bones and grey ash. But many do not weep. Briseis, who stands watching until the last embers have gone out. Thetis, her spine straight, black hair loose and snaky in the wind. The men, kings and common, they gather at a distance, afraid of the eerie keening of the nymphs and Thetis' thunderbolt eyes. Closest to tears is Ajax, leg bandaged and healing, but perhaps he is just thinking of his own long-awaited promotion. The pyre burns itself out. If the ashes are not gathered soon, they will be lost to the winds, but Thetis, whose office it is, does not move. At last, Odysseus is sent to speak with her. He kneels. Goddess, we would know your will. Shall we collect the ashes? She turns to look at him. Perhaps there is grief in her eyes. Perhaps not. It is impossible to say. Collect them. Bury them. I have done all I will do. He inclines his head. Great Thetis, your son wished that his ashes be placed— I know what he wished. Do as you please. It is not my concern. Servant girls are sent to collect the ashes. They carry them to the golden urn where I rest. Will I feel his ashes as they fall against mine? I think of the snowflakes on Pelion, cold on our red cheeks. The yearning for him is like hunger hollowing me. Somewhere his soul waits, but it is nowhere I can reach. Bury us and mark our names above. Let us be free. His ashes settle among mine, and I feel nothing. Agamemnon calls a council to discuss the tomb they will build. We should put it on the field where he fell, Nestor says. Machaon shakes his head. It'll be more central on the beach by the agora. That's the last thing we want, tripping over it every day, Diomedes says. On the hill, I think. The ridge by their camp, Odysseus says. Wherever. I have come to take my father's place. The clear voice cuts across the room. The heads of the kings twist towards the tent flap. A boy stands framed in the tent's doorway. His hair is bright red, the color of the fire's crust. He is beautiful, but coldly so. A winter's morning. Only the dullest would not know which father he means. It is stamped on every line of his face, so close it tears at me. Just his chin is different, angling sharply down to a point, as his mother's did. I am the son of Achilles, he announces. The kings are staring. Most did not even know Achilles had a child. Only Odysseus has the wits to speak. May we know the name of Achilles' son? My name is Neoptolemus, called Pheres. Fire, but there's nothing of flame about him beyond his hair. Where is my father's seat? Idomeneus has taken it. He rises. Here. Thetis' eyes rake over the Cretan king. I pardon your presumption. You did not know I was coming. He sits. Lord of Mycenae, Lord of Sparta, the slightest incline of his head, I offer myself to your army. Agamemnon's face is caught between disbelief and displeasure. He had thought he was done with Achilles, and the boy's effect is strange, unnerving. You do not seem old enough. 12. He is 12. I have lived with the gods beneath the sea, he says. I have drunk their nectar and feasted on ambrosia. I come now to win the war for you. The fates have said that Troy will not fall without me. What? Agamemnon is aghast. If it is so, we are indeed glad to have you, Menelaus says. We were talking of your father's tomb and where to build it. On the hill, Odysseus says. Menelaus nods. A fitting place for them. Them? There is a slight pause. Your father and his companion, Patroclus. And why should this man be buried aside Aristos Achaeon? The air is thick. They are all waiting to hear Menelaus's answer. It was your father's wish, Prince Neoptolemus, that their ashes be placed together. You cannot bury one without the other. Thetis lifts his sharp chin. A slave has no place in his master's tomb. If the ashes are together, it cannot be undone. But I will not allow my father's fame to be diminished. The monument is for him alone. Do not let it be so. Do not leave me here without him. The kings exchange glances. Very well, Agamemnon says. It shall be as you say. I am air and thought, and can do nothing. The greater the monument, the greater the man. The stone the Greeks quarry for his grave is huge and white, stretching up to the sky. Achilles, it reads. It will stand for him, and speak to all who pass. He lived and died, and lives again in memory. Pyrrhus's banners bear the emblem of Scyros, his mother's land, not Phthia. His soldiers, too, are from Scyros. Dutifully, Automedon lines up the Myrmidons and women in welcome. They watch him make his way up the shore, gleaming, new-minted troops, his red gold hair like a flame against the blue of the sky. I am the son of Achilles, he tells them. I claim you as my inheritance and birthright. Your loyalty is mine now. His eyes fix upon a woman who stands, eyes down, her hands folded. He goes to her and lifts her chin in his hand. What's your name? He asks. Briseis. I've heard of you, he says. You were the reason my father stopped fighting. That night, he sends his guards for her. They hold her arms as they walk her to the tent. Her head is bowed in submission, and she does not struggle. The tent flap opens, and she is pushed through. Pyrrhus lounges in a chair, one leg dangling carelessly off the side. Achilles might have sat that way once, but his eyes were never like that, empty as the endless depths of the black ocean, filled with nothing but the bloodless bodies of fish. She kneels. My lord, my father broke with the army for you. You must have been a good bed slave. Briseis' eyes are at their darkest and most veiled. You honor me, my lord, to say so, but I do not believe it was for me he refused to fight. Why then, in your slave's opinion? A precise eyebrow lifts. It is terrifying to watch him speak to her. He is like a snake. You do not know where he will strike. I was a war prize, and Agamemnon dishonored him in taking me. That is all. Were you not his bed slave? No, my lord. Enough. His voice is sharp. Do not lie to me again. You are the best woman in the camp. You were his. Her shoulders have crept up a little. I would not have you think better of me than I deserve. I was never so fortunate. Why? What is wrong with you? She hesitates. My lord, have you heard of the man who is buried with your father? His face goes flat. Of course I have not heard of him. He is no one. Yet your father loved him well and honored him. He would be pleased to know that they were buried together. He had no need of me. Peleus stares at her. My lord? Silence! The word cracks over her like a lash. I will teach you what it means to lie to Aristos Achion. He stands. Come here. He is only 12, but he does not look it. He is the body of a man. Her eyes are wide. My lord, I am sorry I have displeased you. You may ask anyone, Phoenix or Automedon. They will say I am not lying. I have given you an order. She stands, her hands fumbling in the folds of her dress. Run, I whisper. Do not go to him. But she goes. My lord, what would you have of me? He steps to her, eyes glittering. Whatever I want. I cannot see where the blade comes from. It is in her hand, and then it is swinging down on him. But she has never killed a man before. She does not know how hard you have to drive it. And with what conviction. And he is quick, twisting away already. The blade splits the skin, scoring it in a jagged line, but does not sink in. He smacks her viciously to the ground. She throws the knife at his face and runs. She erupts from the tent, past the 2 slow hands of the guards, down the beach and into the sea. Behind her is Peleus, tunic gashed open, bleeding across his stomach. He stands beside the bewildered guards and calmly takes a spear from one of their hands. Throw it, a guard urges, for she is past the breakers now. A moment, Peleus murmurs. Her limbs lift into the gray waves like the steady beats of wings. She's always been the strongest swimmer of the 3 of us. She used to swear she'd gone to Tenedos once, 2 hours by boat. I feel wild triumph as she pulls further and further from the shore. The only man whose spear could have reached her is dead. She is free. The only man, but that man's son. The spear flies from the top of the beach, soundless and precise. Its point hits her back like a stone tossed into a floating leaf. The gulp of black water swallows her whole. Phoenix sends a man out, a diver, to look for her body, but he does not find it. Maybe her gods are kinder than ours, and she will find rest. I would give my life again to make it so. The prophecy told truly. Now that Peleus had come, Troy falls. He does not do it alone, of course. There's the horse and Odysseus' plan, and a whole army besides, but he is the one who kills Priam. He is the one who hunts down Hector's wife, Andromache, hiding in a cellar with her son. He plucks the child from her arms and dashes his head against the stone of the walls, so hard the skull shatters like rotted fruit. Even Agamemnon blanched when he heard. The bones of the city are cracked and sucked dry. The Greek kings stuff their holds with its gold columns and princesses. Quicker than I could have imagined possible, they pack the camp. All the tents rolled and stowed, the food killed and stored. The beach is stripped clean, like a well-picked carcass. I haunt their dreams. Do not leave, I beg them, not until you have given me peace. But if anyone hears, they do not answer. Peleus wishes a final sacrifice for his father the evening before they sail. The kings gather by the tomb, and Peleus presides, with his royal prisoners at his heels, Andromache and Queen Hecuba, and the princess, Polysena. He trails them everywhere he goes now, in perpetual triumph. Calchas leads a white heifer to the tomb's base, but when he reaches for the knife, Pyrrhus stops him. A single heifer? Is that all? The same you would do for any man? My father was Aristos Achion. He was the best of you, and his son has proven better still. Yet you stint us. Pyrrhus's hand closes on the shapeless blowing dress of the Princess Polysena, and yanks her towards the altar. This is what my father's soul deserves. He will not, he dare not. As if in answer, Pyrrhus smiles. Achilles is pleased, he says, and tears open her throat. I can taste it still, the gush of salt and iron. It seeped into the grass where we are buried and choked me. The dead are supposed to crave blood, but not like this. Not like this. The Greeks leave tomorrow, and I am desperate. Odysseus. He sleeps lightly, eyelids fluttering. Odysseus, listen to me. He twitches. Even in sleep, he is not at rest. When you came to him for help, I answered you. Will you not answer me now? You know what he was to me. You saw, before you brought us here. Our peace is on your head. My apologies for bothering you so late, Prince Pyrrhus. He offers his easiest smile. I do not sleep, Thetis says. How convenient. No wonder you get so much more done than the rest of us. Pyrrhus watches him with narrowed eyes. He cannot tell if he is being mocked. Wine? Odysseus holds up a skin. I suppose. Pyrrhus jerks his chin at 2 goblets. Leave us, he says to Andromache. While she gathers her clothes, Odysseus pours. Well, you must be pleased at what you've done here. Hero by 13? Not many men can say so. No, other men. The voice is cold. What do you want? I'm afraid I've been prompted by a rare stirring of guilt. Oh. Well, we sail tomorrow and leave many Greek dead behind us. All of them are properly buried with a name to mark their memory, all but one. I am not a pious man, but I do not like to think of souls wandering among the living. I like to take my ease unmolested by restless spirits. Pyrrhus listens, his lips drawn back in faint habitual distaste. Now, I cannot say I was your father's friend, nor he mine, but I admired his skill and valued him as a soldier, and in 10 years you get to know a man, even if you don't wish to. So, I can tell you now that I do not believe he would want Patroclus to be forgotten. Pyrrhus stiffens. Did he say so? He asked that their ashes be placed together. He asked that they be buried as one. In the spirit of this, I think we can say he wished it. For the first time, I am grateful for his cleverness. I am his son. I am the one who says what his spirit wishes for. Which is why I came to you. I have no stake in this. I'm only an honest man who likes to see right done. Oh. So, is it right that my father's name should be diminished? Tainted by a commoner? Patroclus was no commoner. He was born a prince and exiled. He served bravely in our army, and many men admired him. He killed Sarpedon, second only to Hector. In my father's armor, with my father's name, he is none of his own. Odysseus inclines his head. True, but fame is a strange thing. Some men gain glory after they die, while others fade. What is admired in one generation is abhorred in another. We cannot say who will survive the holocaust of memory. Who knows? He smiled. Perhaps one day even I will be famous. Perhaps more famous than you. I doubt it, Odysseus shrugs. We cannot say. We are men only. A brief flare to the torch. Those to come may raise us or lower us as they please. Patroclus may be such as will rise in the future. He is not. Then it would be a good deed, a deed of charity and piety, to honor your father and let a dead man rest. He is a blot on my father's honor, and a blot on mine. I will not allow it. Take your sour wine and go. Thetis' words are sharp as breaking sticks. Odysseus stands but does not go. Do you have a wife? He asks. Of course not. I have a wife. I have not seen her for 10 years. I do not know if she is dead or if I will die before I can return to her. I had thought always that his wife was a joke, a fiction, but his voice is not mild now. Each word comes slowly, as if it must be brought from a great depth. My consolation is that we will be together in the underworld, that we will meet again there, if not in this life. I would not wish to be there without her. My father had no such wife, Thetis says. Odysseus looks at the young man's implacable face. I have done my best, he says. Let it be remembered I tried. I remember. The Greeks sail, and take my hope with them. I cannot follow. I am tied to this earth where my ashes lie. I curl myself around the stone obelisk of his tomb. Perhaps it is cool to the touch, perhaps warm. I cannot tell. Achilles, it says, and nothing more. He is gone to the underworld, and I am here. People come to see his grave. Some hang back as if they are afraid his ghost will rise and challenge them. Others stand at the base to look at the scenes of his life carved on the stone. They are a little hastily done, but clear enough. Achilles killing Memnon, killing Hector, killing Penthesilea. Nothing but death. This is how Peleus' tomb might look. Is this how he will be remembered? Thetis comes. I watch her, withering the grass where she stands. I have not felt such hatred for her in a long time. She made Peleus, and loved him more than Achilles. She is looking at the scenes on the tomb, death after death. She reaches as if she will touch them. I cannot bear it. Thetis, I say. Her hand jerks back. She vanishes. Later she returns. Thetis. She does not react, only stands looking at her son's tomb. I am buried here, in your son's grave. She says nothing, does nothing. She does not hear. Every day she comes. She sits at the tomb's base, and it seems that I can feel her cold through the earth, the slight searing smell of salt. I cannot make her leave, but I can hate her. You said that Chiron ruined him. You are a goddess, and cold, and know nothing. You are the one who ruined him. Look how he will be remembered now, killing Hector, killing Troilus, for things he did cruelly in his grief. Her face is like stone itself. It does not move. The days rise and fall. Perhaps such things pass for virtue among the gods, but how is there glory in taking a life? We die so easily. Would you make him another Pyrrhus? Let the stories of him be something more. What more? She says. For once, I am not afraid. What else can she do to me? Returning Hector's body to Priam, I say. That should be remembered. She is silent for a long time. And his skill with the lyre, his beautiful voice. She seems to be waiting. The girls, He took them so that they would not suffer at another king's hands.
That was your doing.
Why are you not with Thetis? Something flickers in her eyes.
He is dead.
I am fiercely glad. How? It is a command almost.
He was killed by Agamemnon's son.
For what? She does not answer for some time.
He stole his bride and ravished her.
Whatever I want, he said to Briseis. Was this the son you preferred to Achilles? Her mouth tightens.
Have you no more memories?
I am made of memories.
Speak then.
I almost refuse, but the ache for him is stronger than my anger. I want to speak of something not dead or divine. I want him to live. At first it is strange. I am used to keeping him from her, to hoarding him from myself. But the memories well up like spring water, faster than I can hold them back. They do not come as words, but like dreams, rising as scent from the rain-wet earth. This, I say, this and this, the way his hair looked in summer sun, his face when he ran, his eyes, solemn as an owl at lessons, this and this and this. So many memories of happiness, crowding forward. She closes her eyes. The skin over them is the color of sand in winter. She listens, and she too remembers. She remembers standing on a beach, hair black and long as a horse's tail. Slate-gray waves smash against rocks, then a mortal's hands, brutal and bruising, on her polished skin, the sand scraping her raw and tearing inside. The gods, after, tying her to him. She remembers feeling the child within her, luminous in the dark of her womb. She repeats to herself the prophecy that the three old women spoke to her. Your son will be greater than his father. The other gods had recoiled to hear it. They knew what powerful sons do to their fathers. Zeus's thunderbolts still smelled of singed flesh and patricide. They gave her to a mortal, trying to shackle the child's power, to dilute him with humanity, diminish him. She rests her hand on her stomach, feels him swimming within. It is her blood that will make him strong, but not strong enough. I am immortal, he screams at her, his face blotchy and sodden and dull. Why do you not go to him?
I cannot.
The pain in her voice is like something tearing.
I cannot go beneath the earth.
The underworld, with its cavernous gloom and fluttering souls, where only the dead may walk.
This is all that I have left,
she says, her eyes still fixed on the monument, an eternity of stone. I conjure the boy I knew, Achilles, grinning as the figs blur in his hands, his green eyes laughing into mine. Catch, he says. Achilles, outlined against the sky, hanging from a branch over the river, the thick warmth of his sleepy breath against my ear. If you have to go, I will go with you. My fears forgotten in the golden harbor of his arms. The memories come and come. She listens, staring into the grain of the stone. We are all there, goddess and mortal, and the boy who was both. The sun is setting over the sea, spilling its colors on the water's surface. She is beside me, silent in the blurry creeping dusk. Her face is unmarked as the first day I saw her. Her arms are crossed over her chest as if to hold some thought to herself. I have told her all. I have spared nothing, of any of us. We watch the light sink into the grave of the western sky.
I could not make him a god,
she says, her jagged voice rich with grief. But you made him. She does not answer me for a long time, only sits, eyes shining with the last of the dying light.
I have done it,
she says. At first, I do not understand. But then, I see the tomb, and the mark she has made on the stone. Achilles, it reads, and beside it, Patroclus.
Go,
she says.
He waits for you.
In the darkness, two shadows, reaching through the hopeless, heavy dusk. Their hands meet, and light spills in a flood like 100 golden urns pouring out the sun. The end.